Starting off at number 10, we have Winona Ryder in the Rainbow Family Commune of Living. If you're a fan of all the iconic 80s movies and Johnny Depp's Wino Forever tattoo, then you should know the name Winona Ryder very, very well. But what you may not know is that Ryder was raised in the Rainbow Family Commune of Living for most of her life. Ryder's family joined the commune when she was just 7 years old and lived a life solely on the land. No TV, no electricity whatsoever. So how on earth did Winona become so excited about acting? Well, it was actually reading that got her interested in the profession, and when her family moved out of the commune a few years later, she began auditioning. Thankfully, they left the cult life behind before it went really south, but Winona still describes her parents as the 60s hippie type. When she started going to regular school, however, she was still considered an outcast and suffered various types of verbal and physical bullying. But there's a reason we know Winona's name, because she's awesome and she turned whatever weirdness people thought she had into a prolific film and TV career. Go Winona. Number 9. The Organite Society with Jaden Smith. This next one has drawn in the likes of Jaden Smith and Kylie Jenner. If you're a follower of these two celebs, then you may have seen them holding strange pyramid objects that look like the product of one of those satisfying TikTok resin videos. Well, that's not entirely wrong. These objects are called organites and are the signature object of those in the Organite Society. What are they? They are pyramids of organite, which is a man-made crystal said to be able to realign and heal our imbalanced energies. According to the official website, an organite is made from resin, metals, and quartz, which sounds like the perfect craft for all those TikTok resin hobbyists out there. The ideology behind the Organite Society stems from a banned Austrian psychiatrist named Dr. Wilhelm Reich. A student of Freud, he was expelled from the International Psychoanalytical Association after Freud found significant red flags in his practice and was like, nah, not this guy, get out. After escaping World War II Germany and coming to America, Reich brought his research with him. Unfortunately, I don't know. Making human-sized boxes out of organic and inorganic material. He claimed that if people laid on top of the boxes, the orgone would reorganize their cosmic energies, even allegedly healing those with cancer. He was eventually imprisoned for spreading medical disinformation and ironically died of heart failure. But even after his death, organites still live on and have obviously caught some significant attention. A part of me wonders whether Jaden and Kylie knew what they were joining, or if this was just something fun to make at parties. Coming in at number 8, we have David and Patricia Arquette. Though the entire Arquette family are actors, you may recognize the name David and Patricia Arquette for the shows like Medium and, I don't know, Scream. Alongside their interest in acting, the family also had a difficult upbringing linked to the Subud cult. Patricia was only 4 when they moved into the commune, and her brother David was in fact born there. But what is the Subud movement? Well, like many others, it's a cult built around a religious idea of finding the inner self and began in Indonesia in the 1920s. Centered around a practice called Latihan, members met around once or twice, men separated from women, to meditate and accept the power of God through movement. Wailing? Whatever they felt like. Basically sounds like they just did what they felt they needed to, or what they felt God told them to do. The Arquettes lived in a communal space with no washroom or electricity or running water in order to be brought closer to nature. The commune eventually became so poor that the government intervened and dropped off food for them. But apparently there was fun to be had at the commune, because very often the Arquettes would do performances. After a few years though, the family eventually moved back to Chicago after no longer being able to sustain themselves. We all know breathing is good for you. We need it. We literally can't survive without it. But some seem to think that's all we need to survive. Coming in at number 7, we have Michelle Pfeiffer and the Breatharian cult. A Breatharian believes that through strict meditation, they can reach a higher conscious state that allows them to be able to survive on air and sunlight alone. No food, nothing else. When Michelle was a young actress in Hollywood, she somehow got involved with a group of breatharians. I also love the name, it's so literal. Like, cut straight to the point, we're about breathing air. Breatharians. Apparently they were very controlling and kept her on a strict vegetarian diet that no one could sustain. Though she never lived with them, she visited constantly due to pressure she received. This became such a financial burden on her because she had to pay every time she was there, which was a lot. She was quite literally a starving artist. Her ex-husband Peter Horton helped her get out of it due to a movie he was working on at the time that dealt with followers of the Unification Church. After doing more research, Michelle finally realized that she was in a cult and got out. Thank goodness she did, because this cult also had some deadly consequences. Some people have even starved themselves to death by their own hand. Most famously was Verity Lynn, who while attempting a 21-day breatharian program died of hypothermia and malnutrition brought on by self-neglect. Coming in at number 6, we have Val Kilmer and the Christian Science group. Here is another cult that has its followers believing in the power of prayer to cure all. We may not have seen much of Val Kilmer lately unless you've been rewatching the 1995 Batman Forever or the Doors movie, but that's because we almost lost him. In 2014, Kilmer finally went to the doctor due to a massive lump in his throat and was diagnosed with throat cancer. Now, the Christian Science organization reneged this and said it was more of an idea of cancer rather than actual cancer. The group convinced him that he must instead relocate and dedicate himself to prayer so that his fear no longer manifested externally. Thankfully, his kids and family were like, "No, Dad, please, no, don't do that. That's not gonna work. That's not a thing," and thankfully convinced him to get the surgery he needed to survive. But even still, Kilmer attributes his healing to prayer and not, the doctors that helped him. Coming in at number 5, we have the surprising discovery of Glenn Close and the MRA. In 2014, the OG Cruella de Vil star revealed her family's experience with the moral rearmament cult. The MRA was founded by evangelist leader Reverend Frank Buckman in 1938 under the idea that to change the world you have to change the individual. Though that's not entirely a wrong way to look at global transformation, how he went about it was pretty, cultish? From age 7 to age 22, Glenn and her siblings were sent to live at the group headquarters in Switzerland. They indeed had a group mentality where everyone had to say and do all the same things. According to Close, if you even had desires to do otherwise, you were made to feel insanely guilty about it. When she finally broke away from the group, she wrote a furious letter to her father for what he had done by sending them to the group. She said as a result of her upbringing that she was terrified because she couldn't trust any of her own instincts, having entirely been defined by falsehoods while she was raised. Thankfully, she was able to find her way out of there, walk straight into acting school, therapy, and has now become the absolute icon she is today. Coming in at number 4, imagine your mom finally meets someone and you move in with him right away. Sounds like a suspicious setup? Am I right? This is an evil stepfather story. From age 7, famous rapper Angel Haze was introduced to the Greater Apostolic Faith group by her mother. According to Haze, all the people within the community lived 10 minutes apart and were forbidden to speak to anyone else outside of it. Couldn't listen to music, wear jewelry, and even eat certain things. It continued to get darker and darker, and sadly Haze experienced some of the worst kinds of assault. Thankfully, Angel and her family escaped and she was out of there by age 10 and has built a phenomenal music career since then, which she has used to tell her story and reach out to those who need to hear the same. Her music is filled with passion and revenge for all those who wronged her inside this prolific cult. Her song, Cleaning Out My Closet, is the best example of how Angel has taken her story and used it to create badass music people need to hear. Coming in at number 3, before I continue to our top 3, please just reach down there, press that thumb, let us know you like us, and we'll be so grateful to you in return. Alright, coming in at number 3, we have Joaquin Phoenix and Rose McGowan with the Children of God cult. Both McGowan and Phoenix belonged to the Children of God cult during a period of time in their upbringing. The cult was helmed by preacher David Brantberg in, you guessed it, the 60s, 1968 specifically, and it initially began as a group for teens. It was fairly standard, the communes were isolated, they believed the end was nigh, and all the rest of the things you need for a cult. No one had jobs because they didn't want to belong to the system. Soon the group had hundreds of different communes, but it was soon revealed that more sinister things were happening. The group was revealed to contain and circulate sex trafficking, even using girls referred to as flirty fishers to enlist recruits at bars. When Phoenix's mother was introduced to this idea, the family got the heck out of there, and so did McGowan's. McGowan says that she must have gotten out by the skin of her teeth, but remembers seeing the kind of slavery that many women were forced into. But what's even crazier, guys, is that the group is still around today, though they've changed their name. It is now called the Family International, and members are now allowed to live privately in their homes and work outside of the commune. With the allegations, they now believe that the apocalypse is actually not here yet, and they still have around 1,700 members today. Yeah, if you just got a sinking feeling in your stomach, I did too. Coming in at number 2, we have Scientology. This next one is pretty controversial, as many debate whether it is a new form of religion or a business or a cult or all three. If you guess Scientology, then you are correct, and I almost don't even need to tell you who are our stars involved with it. We got Tom Cruise, we got Elizabeth Moss, we got Christy Alley, and John Travolta, and actually many more. One of the reasons people think this religion is so far-fetched was that it was found by an American science fiction writer, Ron L. Hubbard, in 1958. 1955. It was initially introduced as a kind of therapy called Dianetics, which sought to erase the content of the active mind so the soul could be more free. But Hubbard came to detest it, as many psychologists denounced it. He was like, oh, never mind, I hate it. Whatever. Scientologists mainly focus on the evolution of the spirit on Earth and something called the Thetan, which they believe is an extraterrestrial creature who created all things. Thetans are trapped within us and have lived multiple human lives. The goal of the Scientologists is to become more aware of the Thetan within them so that they can achieve abilities they never thought possible. I think. I don't know. Guys, honestly, I'm not gonna lie, Scientology is pretty confusing, to say the least. But for some reason, this science and faith-based religion has swept Hollywood, and its followers are devout, to say the least. But those who have left often have some strange things to say. One ex-member named Leah Ramini says that any materials not written by a Scientologist are taught to be lies set on tearing the religion down. Anyone who speaks out against the church is considered an enemy, and they work to tear that person down. Another way the church makes it so hard to leave. Also, remember how I said some people think it's a business? Well, there is a case for that. Apparently there are tiers that define how ascended each follower is, and that there is a top tier that they can reach. Thing is, they have to pay, and Leia says that in fact that there's no top tier and it's all about keeping the money flowing in. Listen, I've read some science fiction in my day, and sometimes I want to believe it's so hard. Like, literally any Doctor Who episode I'm in. Sweep me off into your TARDIS, alien boy. But this, well, it's up to you to decide. And here we are, at last but not least, number 1. A cult that has recently been coding headlines with the face of one familiar Smallville actress, Allison Max. NXIVM hit headlines as a cult revolved around a man named Keith Raniere. Initially begun as a self-help multi-level marketing scheme for the heiress's CEOs, Hollywood actors, name anyone else who's famous, NXIVM has now been revealed as an abuse cult where its most devout followers would be branded and forced into sex. Allison Mack was a fanatic within the cult and was even responsible for expanding and recruiting women for Raniere. In typical cult fashion, Keith was viewed as a god and savior, but when all the dirt got out, there was enough evidence to sentence him for 120 years in prison for all the abuse he dealt. The group was responsible for financial cons and ran for 20 years before information leaked about the cult. There is so much to unpack about this case, and no doubt you've heard about it. A lot of our top 10 have taken place in the 60s, which of course it was the hippie decade, you expect it, but even I can't sit still and watch an episode of Smallville without thinking about what was going on behind the scenes. Thankfully, the cult is no more, and many are being brought to justice.
Coming in at number 10 is Miley Cyrus. Most recently, fans are both worried and convinced that Miley Cyrus has allegedly joined a cult known as the Modern Mystery School. Concerned fans went to TikTok to explain the situation, saying the organization isn't what it seems. It's allegedly an organization that trains healing practitioners in the tradition of the lineage of King Solomon. These healers are encouraged to join sacrifices every year. They sign contracts stating they aren't allowed to tell anybody about it. Now, the main proof for Miley is linked to the multiple times she was seen out with two women named Lily and Blue, who are allegedly healers in the organization. Along with that, Miley's lack of social media presence and outings have also been a point of worrisome behavior. Now, nothing has been confirmed, but there is continuous speculation. Number 9. Bethany Joy Lenz. One Tree Hills alum Bethany Joy Lenz is finally ready to speak out about her experience in a cult for 10 years. On an episode of the Drama Queens podcast, she told her former co-stars that she would write about her time in the undisclosed cult. Also, I don't know how much I can say because there are still people and legal things in place that makes it more complicated for the timing of that, but I write all the time, she said. Now, she added that she was a part of this cult the entire time she was on One Tree Hill. I got involved in something that seemed very rote. I grew up in a Christian home where Wednesday night Bible studies were very common. I think that there's a lot of people that can resonate with that, and I just went to another one. I moved to a new state, moved to a new city, and I went to another Wednesday night Bible study, and that's all it ever was to me. But the friendships seemed deeper, more vulnerable somehow as time went on. The person who was brought into the leadership position was sociopathic, and most of us who were involved were in our early 20s, she said. Number 7. Megan Marks. Bachelor alum Megan Marks revealed in 2017 that she was brought up in a religious group that banned drinking and watching television, but she stands firm that it was wasn't exactly a cult. She told Elle magazine, "I don't like to call it a sect or cult, although many people would regard it as such. Its main purpose was to save individuals from hell, a perspective obviously I disagree with now." On the Kyle and Jackie O show in 2016, Megan explained that she prefers not to use the word cult and instead describes it as a community, which would also just happen to perform exorcisms. In exorcisms, the preacher would put his hand on your head and speak in tongue to get the demons out, she told the radio host. Eventually, Megan made the difficult decision to leave the community and venture off into the real world. "It was difficult to leave the community, but I had thought about it for a while. Having my first drink was hard," she told Kyle and Jackie O. Number 6. Joaquin Phoenix. Joaquin Phoenix, along with his siblings River, Rain, Liberty, and Summer, were raised in Children of God, known as the Family International, where they believed in salvation, spiritual reformation, and the apocalypse of an antichrist. It is a group with an extensive history of making members give up their money and contact with the outside world. Joaquin lived this way for over a decade as his family traveled across South America as missionaries for the Children of God. But around 1974, things started to get a little fishy. The Children of God implemented a form of gospel preaching called flirty fishing, where female members of the cult, or fisherwomen, would persuade men, or fish, to join the community and contribute a charitable donation via intimacy. The practice was the primary source of financial income, and a spike in membership as over tens of thousands of children would be born from these encounters. Now, due to these distorted practices, the family left the group. In a previous interview, Joaquin revealed his parents left soon after he was born, saying, "I think my parents thought they'd found a community that shared their ideas. Cults rarely advertise themselves as such. It's usually someone saying, 'We're like-minded people, this is a community.' But I think the moment my parents realized there was something more to it, they got out." Number 4. Kira Maguire. Bachelor alum Kira Maguire was also born into a cult, a polygamous cult called the Seaside Sect that was founded by her father. He was a New Zealand police officer before fleeing his home country and migrating to Australia in the 1970s. He changed his name, reinvented himself, and quickly started amassing a following after becoming a self-styled messiah. But in August 2000, her father was found guilty of committing 21 related offenses. He was sentenced to 7 years and 6 months in jail, but died towards the end of his sentence. Speaking about it, she said, "I didn't know who my mom was until I was 5. It sounds strange, but it just is what it is. I didn't even have birthdays," she said in 2016 after the story broke. "I think I had my first birthday when I was 7. For other people, it might be really sad, but it's not because it's my story." Number 2. Toni Braxton. In her Unbreak My Heart memoir, the famous R&B singer revealed that she joined Pillar of Truth, a Pentecostal apostate group, with her family as a young girl. She said her family fell into religious extremism where women and their nakedness had to be covered up in full, and almost everything was considered evil, including going to the movies. Members of the Pillar or Truth congregation weren't allowed to listen to their music, including in public places like roller skating rinks, watch movies, celebrate holidays, and drink, as written by Toni. Disobeying any of the regulations meant going to hell. She described pretending to speak in tongues in order to fit in at the church and indicate that she was saved, which was considered evidence that the congregants were ready for the rapture to come. We're ready for the rapture to come to earth at any moment and send the spiritually deserving to heaven. She did this for 8 years, which I just can't even imagine. Her one escape was singing in the church's children's choir, the Sunshine Band. Now, people took notice of her excellent singing voice and began to compare her to sound of that of Anita Baker as she got older. And coming in at number 1 is John Travolta. Actor John Travolta has been a member of the Church of Scientology since 1975. Scientology has variously been defined as a cult, a business, or a new religious movement. Now, John had a son named Jet, and on January 2nd, 2009, Jet died at age 16 while on a Christmas vacation in the Bahamas. A Bohemian death certificate was issued attributing the cause of death to a seizure. Jet, who had a history of seizures, reportedly suffered from Kawasaki disease since the age of 2. It's alleged that John withheld meds from Jet due to Scientology. In July 2019, Jet's passing made headlines again after Samantha Domingo, Placido Domingo's daughter-in-law and former Scientologist, shared some details about it. According to Samantha, one of the church's VIP members for 22 years, Travolta hopped into the ambulance transporting Jet's body to the hospital and tried to bring him back to life. In a desperate attempt to bring Jet back to life, Travolta supposedly did what Samantha described as a bring back to life assist, meaning that he ordered order Jet's spirit to return to his body. His attempt failed, and John's youngest son Ben was born almost 2 years after Jet passed away, and Samantha claims that the family believes Jet's spirit was in Ben. Number 9. Rose McGowan. Rose McGowan grew up in a cult that has had many names over the years. The Family International is a California-based cult that has been known by 2 other names, Children of God and its original name, Teens for Christ. Now, the organization is sometimes referred to as the Family of Love. Confusing, I know. Now, in the beginning, the organization encouraged its members to shun the outside world known as the system. The founder, David Berg, died in 1994 and his wife took over. Now, Rose's father, Daniel, was actually head of the cult's Italian chapter. Fortunately, her parents left the movement in 1978 and the rest of her childhood was spent living in various European cities. Rose has spoken about the experience extensively and has never had a positive word to say. In 2011, she told People, "I remember watching how the cult's men were with women. The women were basically there to serve them." Rose also says the organization used children as a bargaining chip. The group encouraged you to have a lot of kids as fast as you could. Then if you made plans to leave, they would lean on you. You know, maybe your kids would disappear. Now, unfortunately, the organization continues today and remains based in Huntington Beach, California. Number 8. Glenn Close. Glenn Close revealed in 2014 that she'd spent nearly all of her childhood and teen years in a cult. Her father, William Teleferro Close, was a doctor who joined the Moral Rearmament cult when she was only 7. Moral Rearmament was an international moral and spiritual movement that in 1938 developed from American minister Frank Buckman's Oxford group. Frank headed MRA for 23 years until his death in 1961. In 2001, the movement was renamed Initiatives of Change. Glenn shared that the experience of being raised in the group had her questioning what was real about herself. "I wouldn't trust any of my instincts because my beliefs had all been dictated to me." She added, "You basically weren't allowed to do anything, or you were made to feel guilty about any unnatural desire. If you talk to anybody who is in a group that basically dictates how you're supposed to live and what you're supposed to say and how you're supposed to feel, from the time you're 7 till the time you're 22, it has a profound impact on you." Number 7. Andrew Keegan. While many remember actor Andrew Keegan from the 10 Things I Hate About You film, he actually founded the spiritual community Full Circle in 2014. He claims his organization passionately seeks out to inspire and empower the community to co-create a better world. Vice characterized the organization as a new religion, while other outlets called it a cult. In 2015, Vulture described the group in this way: "The actual theology of the group is tough to pin down, but it seems to loosely follow Hinduism, or at least Russell Brand's Sanskrit tattoo version of it." Then in May 2015, the Full Circle Temple was raided by California Department of Alcoholic Beverages Control officers. The raid was apparently related to Full Circle's distribution of kombucha, a fermented beverage made from sweet black tea. A spokesperson for the temple stated that they were unaware that they needed a license to distribute kombucha. Full Circle closed in 2017 because of financial difficulties, largely due to a sharp increase in property values in the area due to Google and Snapchat moving into the neighborhood. Number 4. Tom Cruise. Scientology is a set of beliefs and practices invented by the American author L. Ron Hubbard and in an associated movement. Estimates put the number of Scientologists at under 40,000 worldwide. Now, as you might know, many celebrities are a part of this group, like Tom Cruise. Kate Holmes and Tom Cruise began dating in 2005, and Kate began studying Scientology short after. In April 2006, they welcomed their first daughter, Suri, and the couple got married 7 months later and would stay together for 6 years, but unfortunately things ended badly in 2012. Despite staying pretty quiet during the divorce, immediately people speculated that Tom's dedication to Scientology had a hand in it. When asked if Kate had requested a divorce in part to protect Suri from the group, Tom said, "There's no need to protect my daughter from my religion." But he later admitted that it was in fact one of the reasons. Now, it's since come out that Kate filed for divorce due to fear of Tom abducting their child into Scientology. Kate was granted full custody, while Tom was afforded visitation rights, but honestly, the thing that exposed Tom the most is the fact that he, all on his own, decided to choose Scientology over his daughter, and literally has not spoken to her since the split. Apparently, members are forbidden from associating with non-believers, so he cut ties, which is just sad. Number 2. Neil Bush. Neil Bush, brother of George W. and Jeb, is reportedly part of the Unification Movement, or the Unification Church. Now, the Unification Church, known to normal people as the Moonies, was founded in 1954 war in South Korea by self-proclaimed Messiah Reverend Sung Myung Moon, based on his teachings found in The Divine Principle, a book written by, you guessed it, Moon. Now, the South Korean cult came to attention of the world thanks to its mass wedding ceremonies, where hundreds of strangers would meet and marry. The Unification Church has many strange beliefs and ties to politics, with the religious group known to be anti-communist and big fans of Donald Trump. Neil Bush joined Moon on a year-long tour promoting the construction of a $400 billion tunnel that never came to fruition. After Sung Myung Moon's death in 2012, Neil said, "As controversial as Rev Moon was in the United States, I got to know him as a man whose heart was focused on bringing together people of different faiths to bridge divides. His call on people of faith to serve others is an important legacy." Now, I can't imagine having to live a life like she did, as that sounds horrible. Now let's discuss Christopher Owens. Musician Christopher Owens' family were members of the Children of God sect. He traveled throughout Asia and Europe to help recruit new members before leaving the cult. Christopher told The Guardian about what it was like and said, "Imagine being raised in the ban. Being told everybody else in the world is bad, rejecting technology, rejecting medical research, being devoted to God, and believing America was evil and at the end of the world was coming. All the same principles." He added that we lived in places so secluded that mail or phone calls just didn't exist. We had such a restricted upbringing, so we were only allowed to watch wholesome old musicals. I'll never forget that, because later when I moved back to the States, friends would discuss movies like Terminator with me, and I'd be like, has anyone seen Oklahoma? Now, unfortunately, his older brother lost his life after the cult refused to allow him conventional medical intervention, and now to me, that is just plain evil. Now later, when his father and sister chose to leave, Christopher had to sever his ties with both of them for many years. People who left for good were called backsliders. To look back or have any contact with them was to drag you down, he said. Thankfully, though, as mentioned before, he got out and is grateful for that.
At number 10 is Bohemian Grove. You ever heard of the Bohemian Grove? It's kind of like a super exclusive campsite for a bunch of really powerful dudes. We're talking top-notch people like artists, musicians, big shots in business, former presidents, and even high-ranking officials. They meet up every July for more than 2 weeks of occult shenanigans and political conspiracy. I'll get to the culty stuff in a minute, but first, I just wanted to point out how powerfully influential this society is, as some major world-changing deals have gone down in this place. Get this, back in 1942, they had a meeting that led to the making of the atomic. Heavyweights like Ernest Lawrence, Robert J. Oppenheimer, and heads of the big shot universities first conceived the idea of the Manhattan Project right here. Now, what makes this site even more interesting, besides all the political agendas, are the extremely culty rituals that go down here. For example, the cremation of care ceremony is a theatrical production in which a bundle of sticks in a sack shaped as a person is burned and sacrificed in front of a giant owl statue known as Moloch, the owl god. I wish I were making this stuff up. The club's patron saint is Saint John of Nepomuk, who, according to legend, would have rather died at the hands of a Bohemian monarch, and did, rather than disclose the secrets of the queen. A large wood carving of Saint John with his index finger over his lips stands at the shore of the lake in the Grove, symbolizing the secrecy kept by the Grove's attendees. At number 9 is Scientology. It's not just another self-help thing or a bunch of weirdos. No. This is a strange and dangerous money-making machine disguised as a religion. Essentially, they managed to brainwash members into making a lifetime commitment to Scientology by signing a billion-year contract. Yeah, billion with a B. And in return for working an average of at least 100 hours a week, members earn $2 trillion. Sounds neat, but that's spread out over your billion-year commitment, amounting to, at maximum, $50 per week. Some members aren't even paid at all. They're all about hiding their sketchy stuff from the public eye. They even run their operations at sea or on reservations to dodge the law, so that even loyal high-profile members don't know all the shady stuff that's going on. Well, lots of folks want to believe in something, right? And that makes them easy targets. And Scientology isn't just about money, it messes people up big time. They use mind games to make you loyal, basically giving all their members Stockholm Syndrome. It's messed up, but true. These groups mess with your head so much that you can't even see the truth anymore. They make you think everything is okay, but it's a trap. And getting out isn't easy. It's like being kidnapped mentally. And if you do manage to escape, you will be pursued by private investigators till the end of the earth. They silence anyone trying to escape or spill the beans. Even the cult leader's wife, Shelley Miscavige, has been has been missing for almost 2 decades, which is seriously freaky. If you're enjoying this video so far, please support the channel by pressing like, subscribing to Most Amazing, and ringing that notification bell. At number 8 are the Freemasons. This ancient club has been around for centuries. Back in the day, these guys were a big deal, especially during the time when America was just getting started. Imagine that you're a builder working on big fancy cathedrals in Europe during the Middle Ages. These builders had to move from place to place, and to recognize each other they used special signs like the builder's square and compass, which ended up being an iconic symbols of Freemasonry. As a matter of fact, the very first third party in the United States, the Anti-Masonic Party, formed in 1828 in response to fears that the group was growing too secretive and powerful. Seems like those fears never went away. Now, the Freemasons aren't a religious group, but they do believe in a higher power. This belief caused some trouble with the Catholic Church way back when. See, the church didn't trust them much and issued a bunch of warnings against them, which led to some drama, even sparking America's first third party, which I just mentioned. But the Freemasons aren't just some ancient history club. They're still around today doing a lot of charity work, or in other words, passing around money tax-free. And get this, lots of famous people were Freemasons. Folks like George Washington, Benjamin Franklin, and even Mozart and Winston Churchill. Now, the symbol that everybody talks about, the square and compass, is like the builder's tools, and some folks think the G in the middle stands for geometry or God, or the grand architect of the universe. At number 7 is J.E.'s Little Black Book. Now, I have to be extremely careful about how I word this entry, as YouTube's algorithm will definitely suppress this video if I go into too much detail, so I'm just gonna have to heavily censor myself. But I highly encourage you to Google this yourself after the video. In the tangled web of secrets and connections, Jeffrey's Little Black Book emerged as a chilling glimpse into a world veiled from public view. This disturbing document, unearthed in a courtroom back in 2009, reads like a who's who of the global elite, meticulously chronicling the names, numbers, and addresses of the world's most powerful figures. Go through the document yourself, and I'm certain you'll recognize at least one name on every single page. There are 97 pages bursting with 1,571 names, plus 5,000 phone numbers, heaps of emails, and home addresses. Within these pages lies identities of celebrities, royals, esteemed scientists, and influential artists. The fact that this monster was so well connected really makes you think about the dealings that secretly go on with the elite. Among those circled are notable figures like Prince Andrew, Ehud Barak, and Donald Trump, leaving questions hanging in the air, inviting speculation about their involvement or ties to Jeffrey and his sinister operation. At number 6 is the Bilderberg Group. In 1954, there was this meeting that started it all, the Bilderberg meeting. It happened in the Netherlands at a fancy hotel called the Hotel Bilderberg. Prince Bernhard of the Netherlands hosted it. It was a big deal, and lots of powerful people from North America and Europe came together to talk, as they were worried about Europe not being too closely allied with America, so they wanted to become better allies. The guest list at these meetings is pretty impressive, including big shots like Bill Clinton, Margaret Thatcher, Angela Merkel, Tony Blair, Henry Kissinger, the list goes on and on. But the thing is, what happens in these meetings stays a secret, as there are no journalists allowed inside and attendees can't spill the beans. It's all very hush-hush. Around 120 to 140 people get invited every year. Most are from Europe and North America, and they're usually into politics or government stuff. But sometimes they also invite folks from academia and finance. These meetings aren't short of rumors. Some people think that the folks are secretly running the show behind major events like making the European Union, starting wars, or even planning a brand new world order. But the Bilderberg folks say that they're just there as individuals not representing anyone. A little bit sus. Recently, they had chatted about Brexit, cyber stuff, and climate change, but what really goes on inside these meetings is still a big mystery, but people have been talking about them for ages. At number 5, we've got the Stewards, a group formed in 1903 by people at Georgetown University who were worried about the school was forgetting its Jesuit roots. They called themselves the Society of Stewards, but this was all hush-hush until 1988 when the student newspaper spilled the beans on them. Now here's the kicker. After the big reveal, they split into 2 groups. The original gang faded out in the 90s, but its spin-off, the Second Society of Stewards, is still hanging around today. Why all the fuss? Well, these groups are said to throw their weight behind a right-wing agenda, using their cash and status to swing things their way. For example, Jack Applebaum was being pushed by the group to be the student body president until word got out that he was part of the secret society, which made his campaign nosedive. At number 4 is the Cadaver Society. Deep within Washington and Lee University hides a secret society shrouded in mystery. Established back in 1957, this crew is as mysterious as it gets. Nobody knows for sure who the members are, but rumor has it they might be mostly pre-med students. Now what's striking is their stealth, as they only convene after sunset, decked out in black capes and hoods, making identification kind of impossible. Nobody knows where they meet up. Some whisper about underground tunnels camouflaging their movements, locked doors in the science building's basement, or even a tiny door in the Laborian library. Their symbol, a skull cradled in a C, pops up all over campus, often after some cheeky pranks. Now before major games, their mark used to grace the football field. Now a turf field, it's shifted to the hilt nearby. At number 3 is the Illuminati. Weishaupt started it in 1776, not for cool handshakes and secret passwords, but as a big middle finger to the power of the Catholic Church and the Bavarian monarchy. He wanted reason to reign supreme, and so he cooked up this illumination thing. Now this dude was all about grabbing ideas from everywhere, the Enlightenment, Jesuits, even the Freemasons. Speaking of which, he poached heavily from them to recruit Europe's big shots. Think wealthy folks, influential dudes, noblemen, writers, you name it. The Illuminati also had levels and tiers within the ranks. There were the perfectibilists, and their communication was encrypted, of course. They had these cool nicknames too. Weishaupt's was Spartacus, which kind of sounds like a superhero name, but the party didn't last long. Karl Theodor of Bavaria shut it down hard in 1787, saying if you join the Illuminati, you're gonna face lethal punishment. Even though the group apparently got axed, rumors flew that they're still flying to this day. And they're behind everything from the French Revolution. At number 2 is the Skull and Bone Society. The super secretive group started back in 1832 at Yale University. The founders, William Huntington Russell and Alphonso Taft, made this club that's shrouded in mystery. Now what's wild is that some really big names are part of this crew. Every year, 15 seniors get picked to join the society, but here's the kicker, they gotta keep everything super hush. Their meetings are at a place called the Tomb, meeting twice a week and swearing to secrecy. Now there are some serious big shots who've been part of this crew. Presidents like Taft Bush, both senior and junior, John Kerry, and some bigwigs from Fortune 500 companies and the CIA. Oh, and there's this symbol that they rock, a skull with crossbones, obviously, with the number 322 beneath it, which people say might be linked to when Alexander the Great kicked the bucket. And at number 1 is the Order of Gimghoul. This mysterious society was based in the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. They've been around since way back in 1889, but their membership and activities are shrouded in secrecy. Legend has it that their castle headquarters was built where a guy named Peter Dromgoole met his end in 1833 after a duel over a girl. It's said that there's this rock at the castle's entrance that's said to be stained with Dromgools. Originally, they were called the Order of Dromgoole, but they changed the name to Gimghoul for a scarier vibe, I guess. They're all about chivalry and the whole King Arthur deal, but nobody really knows who's in it or how they're picked. Some wild accusations about them came up on a show called The Chris Gethard Show, claiming involvement in serious stuff, but none of these claims have ever been proven true.